Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special session of the Institute for Peace and Diplomacy's ongoing series on policy dialogue, our China strategy project. My name is Wenran Jiang. I'm a advisory board member of IPD. And today, we're very, very pleased to have this hour focusing on the global cybersecurity, 5G, and telecommunication related topics for discussion. As you all know, the new 5G telecommunication standards offers fiber optic speed and reliability without the cables. The 5G wireless freedom also means your data can cross multiple operator networks as you go about your work. Can you trust all those networks with your data? How would you know? These are the questions we normally ask. Many policy experts, including Institute for Peace and Diplomacy, have in fact weighed in about the high-tech communications industry, cybersecurity, and cybersecurity related risks and sensitivities of 5G networks. Today, we'll hear the facts, rather from a technical perspective, from Dr. Urquhart, who is a global vice president of 5G at Zscaler, who has worked in the cybersecurity industry since late 1980s. And so we can learn more about 5G, cybersecurity, network trust, and what you can do to protect your data when you're not sure about telecom network security. And so we can also learn about what is so-called zero trust, which according to Dr. Urquhart is the emerging gold standard of data security. And so we're very pleased and privileged to have Dr. Urquhart to join us today on this one-on-one, 1 hour conversation. He's the currently global vice president of 5G at Zscaler, based in the United States, in California. And he holds 3 degrees in physics and executive roles in Sun Microsystems, IBM, and Microsoft. And prior to join Zscaler, Dr. Urquhart worked as with many Fortune 500 companies on 5G on cybersecurity. He's actually also a fellow Canadian who has worked with the federal government's National Research Council. And Ken, welcome to the IPD webinar, and very pleased with you joining us today.
Yes, thank you, Wenran. And that was a very kind introduction. And I will try to live up to the high expectations that you've set for me today.
I mean, I've talked to you before, and I've learned from your talks from a few years ago. We have an ongoing conversation. Finally, I'm glad we can sit down to tell people who have primarily having policy backgrounds, but have no technology backgrounds. And I will have a bunch of questions from myself and my colleagues today to talk to you. But first of all, maybe before I ask you to walk through some of the basics with us, tell us about what you're working on right now, because it sounds very sophisticated to the outsider who don't work in the cybersecurity industry. So what's your latest? I know you've been working with large, Microsoft, Sun Micros, all those companies. What's you're up to now?
Well, right now, Zscaler is a very fast-growing cybersecurity company that builds solutions based on the concept of zero trust, which I think at its root is trust nothing, verify everything. And just
I see.
because you are just because you appear to be who you say you are, doesn't mean I should trust you. It also doesn't mean I should trust any computer network. The information you're exchanging with me can be trusted as well. How do you operate in a world where you can't verify every network that you're connected to is trustworthy, has not been hacked, does not have someone listening to your conversation? And so we've also, when COVID-19 hit, a lot of companies were caught with a problem that they're used to having their employees come to their office to do business. So you were provided with a company network, and that company network was protected from the outside world by a firewall and other appliances. And that was your moat or your walled garden of safety. But like any walled garden, it's under siege by attackers. And when I say under siege, I mean that in the sense that you as the defender have to defend yourself against 100% of those attacks to remain safe. An attacker only has to be lucky once to win against you. And the odds are stacked in the favor of the hackers attacking you. And you have everything from people who have open source tools just playing around with them to nation states who pay people every day to come into work and try to breach through your defenses to see what information they can gain. And it doesn't matter which country you're located in or which company you work for. We're all facing this, that there's been a statement that cyber attacks are the new Cold War. It is how countries spy on you. It's how countries gain information on you. It's how countries acquire intellectual property from you. And how do you operate in that environment? And when COVID hit, suddenly everyone's employees had to work from home, outside the walled garden. And this is where people suddenly became very aware of what zero trust was and how they could use it to make it just as easy for their employees to work from home as in the office.
Okay. I mean, you already loaded up with a very brief response to my question on
That's
what
a very
you do.
long response.
That's
I
a long response.
apologize.
No, but no, this is good because I want to walk through and going back to some of those terminologies such as zero trust, such as how the data is being transmitted through networks. But maybe for the non-experts, maybe you could just walk us through with some very basics to start with, such as what it means when you talk about cybersecurity, what it means when you talk about 5G from a tech perspective, and maybe I understand you have some slides to show us, which is always better for non-tech people visually. So if you can spend some time in the next 10, 15 minutes to walk us through some of the basics, and then based on what I see from your slides and your general introduction, I can ask you further follow-up questions.
Okay. And the other one is I'm very, very glad you invited me to this discussion, because there is these two worlds between people who are very technically savvy and those who need to create the policy and regulations to make sure that technology benefits their citizens and their businesses. And being able to meet in the middle and actually understand where each other is coming from is very important. So let me do my best. I'm not going to get really deeply into a lot of this. I just want to give you a flavor and something that you can be able to better understand what's going on and what you should do, can do to make life as a regulatory environment better for businesses and better for your countrymen. So 5G, best way to think about it is, remember, we all assume, we're told fiber optics give you very, very fast data transmission speeds, transmitting data at the speed of light. 5G you can think of as giving you a lot of the benefits of high-speed fiber transmission without the need for fiber optics. It's happening wirelessly through the air, and that is going to change our world. We've already seen it driving new digital transformation. When you've got really high-speed access without wires, it changes the game. You wind up with new use cases, meaning new ways to provide services to people, new devices, because now you're talking about having an untethered, possibly battery-powered device that gives you an ultra-high speed, always-on connection. And that leads to new experiences. And the one thing I know about tech-savvy populations, they get used to new experiences and higher data speed really quickly. And so I've got higher speed, meaning I move data faster. So I've got a lot more data being passed back and forth and a lot more opportunities to gain insights into what people are doing with that data and how they're experiencing the new technologies. And 5G is now rumored to be the new enterprise network, meaning I don't need a lot of the copper. I don't need a lot of the bits and pieces I needed to have in the wired world. And Zscaler, part of our mission, part of what I'm doing is to make sure you stay secure in that world and how to get you ready. Now, when you think about 5G, you say, okay, isn't just another telco speed bump? Well, these are what executives have been saying about 5G. And 2/3 of them said 5G enabled services will be transformative to their businesses and their customers. 3/4 said the Internet of Things, where you've got machines talking to machines, will be revolutionized by 5G. And finally, more than 4 out of 5 agreed that 5G networks would be transformative and have a lasting impact on the way they do business. As I said, for most people, 5G is a faster iPhone. It's a little more than that. When you think about 5G, I tell people I like you to think of 3 things: the word fast, the word live, and the word massive. Fast. We're moving up in speed, and we do this by going to a higher frequency transmission waves. And these are now, you'll hear them called millimeter wave. And the higher frequencies allow you to push more bits of data per second. And in 5G's case, we're talking speeds up to what are called 10 gigabits per second. That's 10 to 100 times faster than 4G that we've been enjoying for several years. There's also a goal to provide 100% coverage in most major metro areas. So yes, 5G is be able to transmit a lot more data a lot faster. And that brings us to live, the second word, ultra low latency. And what does that mean? It means when I want to do something with some computing workload somewhere, let's say I'm taking pictures with my camera and I want to identify everything that's in the picture. Right now, with this high speed, it'll load it up to a nearby AI-based inference engine, which will look at your high definition photo, identify everything in it, and send that information back to you within a few seconds at most, maybe less than that. Also, at ultra low latency means you want high availability. It also means that we're going to move compute resources very close to you. So within your neighborhood, you're going to have potentially large numbers of servers at your beck and call to do things very quickly for you, much faster than it does it today by moving it all the way to the cloud and back. This is important for things like autonomous vehicles, drone deliveries, where they have to know what's going on in their surroundings and react instantly to it. An autonomous vehicle only has, very, very, very small fraction of a second to stop if a child runs in front of it. And that needs the ultra low latency compute. Finally, massive, as in a lot more connectivity. And you get that with a lot more silicon. The chips for 5G have about 40% more silicon than they do for 4G. And they're aiming to give you 1,000 times more throughput and bandwidth, meaning ability to push data for a given area. And we're also talking about 1 million devices per square kilometer being able to connect to 5G without causing everyone to have a slowdown in speed. I'm sure you know with technologies like Wi-Fi, what you don't realize is if you get a couple of hundred devices on a Wi-Fi network, it can slow to a crawl. You get 10,000 devices on a 4G network, on a 4G antenna, it can slow to a crawl. The point about 5G is to not have that degradation of service when you have 1 million devices per square kilometer, which brings us to this other thing about 5G. You'll hear people telling you 5G is not for you. It's for machines. It's for machines around you to communicate understand what you're doing in an area, and then provide you with better services, better lifestyle, anticipate what you want to do to make your life even easier than it is today, to relieve you of the burden of automated tasks. So that's really what we mean with massive. So 3 words: fast, live, and massive. And think about it this way. You know, the difference between the various generations of telco standards, going back to 1G, 1979, very slow speeds, 50 kilobits per second. A web page. Now we talk about 4 seconds to load a web page. That's the average time people will wait for a web page to load before they get bored and possibly go do something else. You could do a 25,000 character web page. That wasn't a lot. That's text only, virtually no graphics. And then you talk about how fast is that? Well, let's talk about downloading something like the 3D Avatar movie, the IMAX version. That's 267 gigabytes, 18 months to download. 2G bumped the speed a bit. That download in 1991 of Avatar wouldn't take 18 months, it'd take 3 months. Huge increase in speed. Went to 3G in 1998. Now you're down to 2 months. 2008 to 4G was the big speed bump. And now you're down to 4 hours. And what was really interesting about 4G is it taught us something else. Telco standards change your world. You say, well, what does that mean? When I went from 3G to 4G, I had enough speed to be able to send high quality audio to a phone. I had enough speed to send high quality digital images to a phone. I had positioning to enable to tell where you were within a few meters. Mm-hmm. And what that did was it allowed me to, with a telco, change in a telco standard, a speed bump, meant if I'd gone at the start of 4G and said to a taxi company, you're going to be put out of business by the fact that 4G gives people hyper-precise location. If I went to a hotel and said, did you know that being able to photograph a person's house in high resolution is going to cause you a huge problem because people are going to start renting their houses through Airbnb? It wouldn't have occurred to people. If you go to a hotel chain and said, 4G is going to disrupt your business, they'd have laughed at you. Taxi companies, 4G is going to almost put you out of business. They would have laughed at you. Now we're going to go to 5G, where that Avatar movie doesn't take 4 hours, doesn't take overnight. It takes 6 minutes to download. I can do a 3.2 gigabyte page, billions of bytes in 4 seconds. That's going to change your world in ways that are unexpected. And as I said, we had great location services within a few meters that enabled, Lyft and Uber. How about getting down to 10 centimeters, knowing where the 5G radio is and what you're holding or what you're wearing or what's around you, knowing where you are in comparison to that. And at the same time, a 90% reduction in energy usage compared to 4G, meaning I can start powering up 5G devices with batteries that'll last a very long time. There's a water pressure or water flow sensor that's being produced to put into pipes today that has a 10-year battery and a 5-year and an 5G transmission system. And then low power 5G IoT devices everywhere, monitoring your world, monitoring production of things, monitoring where trucks are in the logistics supply chain, all knowing where it is in near real time. That's the change that's coming. And it enables these new use cases, the fast, live, and massive. Things like smartphones, smart cities, smart energy grids, better autonomous driving, better emergency management, industrial IoT, medication management, facilities management, automated parking, better HVAC. Think about hotels where they know where you are, they know where you're going, they can set room temperatures to your typical specifications before you get there. They know when you want to go to dinner. They can go and query restaurants around you, make an appointment for you, tell you when you want to be there. If you want coffee, the coffee will just show up. These are the kind of things that we believe 5G will enable. And this is your new world. Right now, think about a world of many, many devices with 5G modems in them, talking to workloads at your company premises or talking to the public clouds. This is our world, but over 5G, cutting the cabling. Now we add the low latency edge. We have different computers physically closer to where you are, each providing you with more and more real-time results. So things like when you talk to your smart digital assistant, parts of it are located so nearby, it can get back to you almost as soon as you finish speaking because it's so close. And then let's add edge cloud platforms. The cloud providers aren't staying in the cloud. They're going to be down on the edge. So if you develop applications and software deploying to the cloud today, you can make parts that need ultra real time and deploy, write those in the same tools you use today, and then deploy them to the edge where they'll start working for you. So you don't need to retrain your developers and your programmers. And finally, we have edge orchestration, models, robotics running at massive scale, AI training, all that high density computing and crunching happening back in the cloud. And now where does your network start and end? The walled garden doesn't work here. You're crossing multiple companies' networks, possibly multiple global boundaries, and you've got no control over who's there, who's not, whether it's been hacked, whether it's been compromised, whether it's safe, because you're trying to now do things in near real time at ultra high speeds, and you don't care where the network is. You just want the connectivity. And that brings us to 5G surprises. We ask, isn't 5G just an operator service? And isn't 5G secure by design? You'll hear that. 5G isn't just for telco operators anymore. You can have private 5G. The whole point of the 5G compared to 4G specification is it is a standard that can be implemented for your business. You can become a telco provider for your own business and for your customers if you wish. It's kind of expensive undertaking, but you can do it. You can also do a piece of it and rent the rest from a telco. There's a variety of ways you can mix and match this that you couldn't do in the world we had in just a little while ago in 4G. The other one is 5G is secure by design. Yes, it is, in the sense that the 5G networks are designed to prevent intrusion. What they don't tell you is that what you're going to run on a 5G network, your workloads, your apps on your phone, the things back in the cloud, the things in the lower latency, fast response edge, you're responsible for that cybersecurity. So if you're going to get into 5G as a corporation, your attack surface has gone up multiple times. You're now pushing more data, more services, more devices, more operating systems, which means more unfamiliarity. If you're going to run a 5G private network, you're going to become like a telco, responsible for the cybersecurity of that network. The standard gives you a fair bit of options for that security, but it's not like maintaining a typical IT network or cloud-based network. And there's lots of botnet opportunities given the huge number of connected devices. Botnets are things that operate in, smart security cameras can have malware put into them that will then act in concert to attack another target. You can compromise devices. In an IoT world with millions of devices per square kilometer, without cybersecurity, you can have all that horsepower hacked and turned against you in almost a moment's notice if you're not careful. And then the attack surface of more 5G use cases and virtualized networks are governed by, the still evolving protocols. 5G standard isn't baked yet. It's getting there, but there's still known security holes. They're being closed, but that's still going to be a few more years. So the big thing to take away from it is 5G, great opportunities, fantastic ways of serving citizens, your customers, your partners, but there's a cost. Which brings us to zero trust. The zero trust security model is designed when you can't trust the network you're on, when you don't know if it's safe or has been compromised, and you still need to traverse it and do something. And in the United States this year, the president issued an executive order to approve the nation's cybersecurity after a hack against a pipeline providing energy to the eastern United States and an attack against one of our biggest meat processors threatening our food safety supply. And it said, implement the zero trust architecture for government agencies. And again, coming back to zero trust, Wenran, it assumes the breach is inevitable or has already occurred. Just assume that's happened. And then you apply security in that environment. And you do that by constantly limiting access to only what's needed. If you're on a network, Zero Trust says, you're only allowed to do certain things, and I'm only going to allow you to do that. If I'm an engineer on a company network, I'm allowed to get at my development tools to deploy software, but I'm not allowed to look at the HR systems. I'm not even allowed to see them. I don't even know they exist if I try to go looking for them. And I always look for anomalous and malicious behavior everywhere. If things don't act normally, that's a problem, and you flag it. Things like a database that serves up information to my Salesforce suddenly starts trying to contact my HR server. That's not normal behavior. That's flagged and shut down because it shouldn't be happening. And I know this is a lot of, I said, I tried to make this as simple as possible. This is still a lot of technical information. Let's make it really simple. Think of your cybersecurity as every packet of data that your enterprise or your government uses has an escort. And that escort takes it from its source to its destination and doesn't let it do anything else. And that data packet and that pipe between at the source and the destination on the network, if I get into that, if I get in there, I can't see anything else on that network. I can only see the things I'm allowed to connect to. It's like if I am going into a building, I am escorted to the conference room where I need to do my work. And the entire building looks like walls and corridors. The doors are invisible to me. Any other door I'm not allowed to go into, I can't see. That's what we're trying to do with the Zero Trust model. So there's comprehensive security monitoring. There's what we call granular access controls, meaning you only get to do what the company believes you should be doing, and you can't get anything else. And we have a lot of automation in it to coordinate system security throughout the infrastructure. So no matter what network you're passing through, you're as safe as we can possibly make you. And the other one is we protect your critical assets in real time, assuming at least one or more of the networks you're crossing is compromised. And this is very useful. Think about a government that has to operate in a foreign country where the telco system is supplied by companies that you may not trust. You have to be able to operate in that country. You can't bring your own network. So Zero Trust wants to make it so you can go in there with your iPhones, your laptops, your smartphones, your tablets. You can connect back to your country. You can do your work that you need to do. And you can be safe in the knowledge that people aren't snooping on you. That's really what Zero Trust is all about. And finally, remember I said 5G is going to disrupt a lot of things we do. And right now, 5G subscriptions are growing 3 times faster than 4G. So we're proceeding much faster than the 4G rollout. People used to think, oh, new telco policy, new telco approach, 2-3 years. I got lots of time. Well, this is running 3 times faster. So we're looking at months instead of years for each step of this deployment. And the 4G rollout changed things because 4G and smartphones and the cloud kind of appeared at the same time and reinforced each other. That confluence was estimated to create 160 new revenue streams, each creating more than $1 billion in value. And that is 15 times more than happened with 3G. Market disruption, the Airbnbs, the Spotify for high quality audio, the Lyft and Uber appeared when there was about 25 to 30% 4G subscriptions into the telco marketplace. 5G, I've got a new telco spec. I've got edge computing. I've got private 5G where anyone can become a telco. I've got cloud. I've got AI. I've got augmented reality, virtual reality. I've got robots, autonomous vehicles, so many more innovations happening at the same time. And 5G reaches its 25% penetration point in late 2022. So it's coming, disruption is coming whether you like it or not. These new networks are coming and you're going to be crossing them and doing your business on them and not using traditional networks that you're very comfortable with. And Zero Trust is there to help you. My company, Zscaler, is making an entire business about working to help you. And I'm working to get Zscaler and our customers and our partners ready so we can provide everyone with safety and assurance in this new world. And then Wenran, that is my series of slides. And thank you everyone for listening to that.
All right, Ken, I'm just drawing notes while listening to you.
I know it's overwhelming. It's the
I
first
know.
time.
I already have tons of questions. Those slides, I think, are really helpful because our viewers can pause the screen and digest what all those floating directions charts, especially some of the comparative data that you mentioned. You already, through this very good, very comprehensive, a very clear walkthrough. I already have answers to some of the questions I wrote down because I'm a bit nervous because I don't have the tech background, but I'm extremely interested in the cyber security issue in the past few years. I draw a bunch of questions. You answered them already, such as like where things are between 2G, 3G, 5G. You walked us through back from 1G. That comparison is amazing. So I do know a lot about so far where we are and the zero security, zero trust issue. I want to definitely follow up. But before I start all my questions, Ken, how about a few words? I know that might be fuzzy. How about a few words about where we're going from here? Because it's almost threatening to see, look at the changes that are so fast in speed in a matter of a few decades, right? What we're looking at, say, people are talking about 5G to 6G already. What that mean? Can you maybe briefly address like where we may be going before I kind of scale back to talk about all the relevant issues related to the presentation that you gave? Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like saying, yep, there we go again. The technology industry racing ahead before people truly understand what we're bringing to market is going to change societies, change governments, change the way we think, change the way we act. 6G is just getting started. There is what I would call a bucket of ideas that are going to be sorted through and see where we can go with them. There will be an attempt to go to an even higher frequencies to get higher data throughput, but that now starts to bring us up against what's called the terahertz range of electromagnetic frequencies. Terahertz frequencies, if you're not careful, things like water vapor will block them. So I don't think you're going to see, you're going to see something a little different because you can say, well, if we go up the terahertz frequency band and we get fog in the city, there'll be no signal propagating. So there's some interesting challenges there. But the other one is 6G is also going to try to deploy a lot more AI.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you try to push all this information through a network, you end up getting congestion. Too many people trying to do too much stuff too quickly in too many locations. And trying to monitor things manually, as telcos used to do, even with basic tools and automation, is not enough. One of the biggest challenges going from 4G to 5G was dealing with the congestion. They were thinking there would be at least 3 times more congestion in the telco networks. And when you're trying to add millions of devices, remember I said there was the group that says the 5G is not for us, not for humans. It's for all the machines. So now we're adding millions of machines where there's maybe tens of thousands of humans, and everybody wants to talk at the same time.
Okay.
It's worse than questions.
Because I remember, I'm old enough, you and I, remember back in 1995, I'm at the University of Alberta, starting my tenure a few years before that, when the library canceled the newspaper subscriptions from Japan, I went to protest because I can't do my research as a e-station specialist if I have new, Asahi Shimbun and all that Japanese papers were cutting back. Then now everything is online. 1995, 96, we start with the internet. I was from my office at University of Alberta trying to get on the modem. I just log on and take. But things have changed. But from what you're saying on 5G, how can we make it even faster? But it looks like we just don't know what the future looks like almost.
We're going to push it till we hit the limit.
Yeah.
Simple as that. It's what we do.
Yeah. So now, okay, let me back to the 5G, a range of issues. First, the implications you talk about in comparison with other earlier 3G, 4G networks. We're now faster, we're live, and we're in massive in scale. You give the numbers. And another thing that I picked up is also energy efficiency in terms of in comparison with running these massive infrastructures in comparison with before. So therefore, there's a green element to all this, which is positive. Now, then I listened to you and watched you walk through us. Things kept coming to my mind from a just a normal layperson or a policy perspective. Now I can see if we are into the 5G era as we speak, we can see that this network, this technology, is basically penetration level is unprecedented. It's getting to every level, very depths into our lives, work and private lives. Then it is also omnipresence. Everywhere you go, you seem to be, I mean, I can still leave my phone aside for a few hours. I'm okay. When I'm not busy, but I do not see my two sons, for example, in their early 20s nowadays. The phone has to be with them at any moment, even in the shower. So this is like, I couldn't understand, but that's actually seemed to be the omnipresence of technology and 5G networks eventually is more so on us. Then finally, it looks like if this is the case, if they're penetrating so much, if they're omnipresence, then we're very heavily dependent on this technology, on the network.
You'll get used to it pretty quickly.
Yeah. So now there are two things when it comes to policy. You already mentioned the government is issuing cybersecurity at the 5G level more so than before. So there are two polling sides. Mainstream, most of us have a reasonable conversation and say, we'll try to understand the technology, we'll try to cope with the security issues. And but there are others, sideline fringe forces saying, oh my God, 5G is going to destroy our life. COVID might be communicated by 5G. There are conspiracy theories all over. The big uncle or the, is watching, we're back to 1984, maybe in the era, the monitoring devices by the government, not only authoritarian states, but all states, including democratic societies we're living, we're worried about that. So this kind of a common sense threat and fear, or the complications of this penetration level, omnipresence level, our dependence level. So can you say something at this level, how the technology side would be able to address some of these concerns and fears, saying where might be getting to a no-end black hole of some sort?
Well, first of all, the intention of all of this is to make life simpler, better, while at the same time delivering a profit to companies delivering these technologies to you. 5G is really about being always on, always present, always available at volume of data that we just aren't used to. That'll do some really interesting things. It can make sporting events extremely exciting. Mm-hmm. It can make a home virtual reality experience could feel like you're in a concert venue on the other side of the world, or you're sitting and you're cheering on your favorite sports team at an event you can't make it to. But it also means that you can have every move you make, every place you go can be noted and monitored. And I can do really nice things like learn how you like to behave on a business trip. I can have a digital assistant make sure coffee is waiting for me at a certain time of the day. If a person can't make a meeting, automatically rescheduled. If I'm not near the restaurant, I have a business dinner booked. It can rebook it automatically, notify everybody, and pick a venue that also accommodates people's dietary restrictions or allergies. All of that sounds great. At the same time, all of that data tells me some incredibly personal behaviors of every single citizen. And that's right for other exploitation.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead. Sorry.
But as regulators, I look at regulators and people who are worried about the laws that the governments are there to make life better for their citizens, not to victimize them, not to prey on them. And regulation has to balance between doing the right thing for citizens versus making it so restrictive that business cannot be conducted within the country. And that's a line that everybody has a responsibility with. Mm-hmm. You'll get tools that'll affect society in ways you don't even understand. And it'll be several years past where people generally agree, yeah, maybe that wasn't that smart an idea to delay regulation. On the other hand, doing regulation too soon can absolutely stifle things that are actually very positive for people in society. I don't know where that line is. Mm-hmm. Most people don't. It's hard. If it were easy, we'd all be doing it and it'd be done and we'd all be very happy with the results.
Mm-hmm. And so kind of looks like it's just wonderful technology. It's so much advanced, but it also raises a whole lot more questions. So at the level of being the common citizens, like people, and then like the society level, privacy concerns. And then the next level would be the companies who provide these cloud service, provide the network connections, such as Facebook, such as Amazon, such as WeChat, WhatsApp, all this. There are reports of company level collecting massive data, and then the government trying to regulate. And there's in the political sphere during the election cycle, we all know what's happening, right? So there's the basic information got compromised when they're transmitted on these networks for election claims or misinformation or warfare almost. So then there's the level of nation state. The state regulates. I understand you yourself as a common citizen, but also in tech work, a network expert, executive, you worked with the corporate level. You also worked with policies with the US, Canadian government. You did testimonies. But how do we, put the three levels, society, corporation who control data, and then the government, which tries to regulate data, trying to address some of the security concerns. And the companies, they say sometimes they do self-regulate, but almost certain from the latest examples of multiple situation cases involving Facebook, among others, the big firms, the cloud service providers may not be able to regulate themselves. So can you maybe say a few words about these levels of concerns before I move on to the other further level that is between nation states and governments in the world about the trust issues?
Yeah, this is, again, it's a nuanced and complex conversation. And I can begin by saying every one of us collectively made tech companies what they are today. A tech company didn't force themselves on us. We made them. We shopped at Amazon. We established accounts at Facebook. We put our pictures on Twitter. We send our comments out on chat boards. We do this. We're given technology and we do something with it. Technology companies are producing technology in exchange for profitability. They will offer what the public wants. The whole point about being a startup is you think you're going to bring something to market. And then to survive, you have to what's called pivot, meaning I have some tech and I'm going to immediately go, when people start buying it, I'm going to start tailoring it to those people I think I know I can sell to. And then you end up with tech. You end up with things that change society. And no one started out to do that, but it happened, which is why I say technology companies provide you with a range of things to choose from. We as consumers, we as customers, we as businesses choose what's useful to us and what's not. And we also give tech companies an earful saying it needs to do something else for me too. And so you're scratching your itch and you're giving the feedback and you're saying, I'll continue buying from you, continue offering me something of value. Then in the middle of that, you get, right, and this isn't really doing what I thought it would do, or this is making fundamental changes to society. Who knew that using your smartphone and Googling things for information resulted in the fundamental way our brains behave? The ability, we with our smartphone navigation systems, we are losing our ability to find our way without them. Our ability to construct mental maps of our surroundings, to go places, the ability to read a map or to remember how to get somewhere without navigation systems. Think of it now when I've got 5G and I can tell you exactly where you are anywhere in the city, and I'll guide you by saying to you in your earbud, turn right, turn left here, stop. And again, you don't have to know where you are ever. So you'll stop thinking about that. Your brain will rewire. And I'm sort of dragging the conversation on, but the fact is technology changes us as much as we're changed by technology. Mm-hmm. And we don't always know what's going to happen with that tech right away. So I come back to, this is a dynamic conversation. If you don't like something, we see people railing about Facebook, you can quit.
Yeah.
It comes down to, it is a personal decision. We are responsible for our lives and how we live it. But we kind of get something out of it, so we keep showing up, and we grumble about it, but we keep showing up. And so what I can do is, how do I make it safe so at least you can have that connection with your tech, and you don't have to worry about people that you don't intend to have access to your information getting access to that information. Mm-hmm. That's what cybersecurity is about. Yeah. But we're not going to, we're protecting your path. For example, we're protecting your path from your phone to get at your HR system at work. But the amount of information you put in that HR system or get out of it and act upon it, that's a responsibility of the company and its employees in the context of government regulation. Hmm.
Well,
can't help you with that.
I mean, the hour is moving fast. This is all fascinating because you're providing myself, and our viewers not with a black and white and simple answers, but lay out different dilemmas and options and the complexities of life under 5G. So I just want to move from here onto the next layer in your presentation about, among these complexities, the trust or zero trust issue. I think it's safe to say we all have concerns to what extent we can trust the tech companies, internet providers, the cloud, data that we put it there nowadays. And finally, the government, which is a big brother, is always watching, either in democratic societies and those other non-open authoritarian societies. The interesting part about zero trust, it reminds me of President Reagan back in 1980s during the last phase of Cold War in dealing with the Soviet Union on nuclear weapons, disarmament, and other things, saying trust but verify. So now we're in.
We are showing our age, aren't we?
We are.
I remember that well.
You remember that well. So the zero trust issue, I think there are two dimensions here. One is in a open society, like in Canada, United States, and others, we demand transparency, privacy protection, and the government is doing that. I'm assuming, other than the United States, the zero trust or a version of zero trust, all are being in some ways implemented. Say, if I go to Europe, China, which is as big a market as the United States, China's 5G is far more advanced in deployment, as my understanding is, than others. I want to come back to that a little bit later, like Russia. What they're doing in terms of trust or zero trust issue, is this across the board, going beyond the national borders between society, individual, and companies and government? Among societies, how do we deal with the zero trust issue here?
Well, zero trust in itself is a way of treating your technology systems so that you are as sure as you can be that someone is not able to maliciously exploit or get into your systems and eavesdrop on your data and your business, or the communication between government and citizen, or between two government agencies. That's at its heart. It's just a way of saying, I'm going to be very flippant about this, but
yeah,
what zero trust really says is, I don't care whether someone's hacked the network you're crossing. I don't care if a bunch of malicious software is running and monitoring, because I'm going to do my best to protect against that.
And so now we know the US government has been very concerned, say non-US or non-ally private corporations to provide 5G or related cyber networks. Huawei is a primary example. It is in the struggle between some kind of US-China competition for high-tech areas. And Huawei as a company has always insisted on their equipment is safe to use, whereas Americans have insisted it's not safe. It banned it, Australia banned it. In this context, Canada has been hesitating, but supposedly with the new cabinet in place, soon Canada will announce its decisions. But you and I both have this conversation before, that the big three telecommunications networks in Canada already are not using Huawei on their own in deployment of the 5G network. So what would be the kind of things that concern, because in the policy community, not tech community, policy community people who are doing cybersecurity in the United States, I talked to in Canada, there are really two opinions. One is not safe. Companies like Huawei has to be banned, period. Not because what it does. We don't really have much proof of Huawei done anything illegal anywhere, but what it is, because it's Chinese in terms of identity. Whereas the other group are basically saying, we cannot just blankly targeting one single company of whatever, Huawei or Ericsson or Nokia, who are 5G providers. We need to provide a general standard to safeguard against any cybersecurity challenges, including 5G networks, disregard who they are and the nationalities behind it. What is your take, Ken, on this kind of a debate? You mentioned earlier in your slides, it's like 5G becoming an escort, destination-wise from the starting point to the end point. You're saying technologically, and others who are advocating a general open policy, open-minded policy, saying you can control it. You can make it zero trust, but verify, and as an escort, you can control the process. People then other side saying, oh, what about they implement a bug in between? They can take something out in the process. So technologically, is that actually doable to make things secure?
Well, just the last thing you said, putting a bug to find out what's going on. Those are very common. I think we call them man-in-the-middle attacks, where you sit in between two devices and pretend that you're not there, and you can see everything going through, and you can even modify the conversation. Zero trust is designed to be able to prevent that and to discover that that's happening. You know, as I said, zero trust is a lot of things. It's well beyond this discussion we're going to have today, but there's a lot of components to it. A lot of thought has gone into it about what can you do, what can't you do, and how do you do it very efficiently to provide protection. But going back to the larger question, biggest cause of security breaches in telco networks, what do you think it is? Misconfiguration.
Yeah.
Telco networks are big and complicated. Lots can go wrong by accident. It typically doesn't. That's what I'm saying. Yes, a lot of insecurity can be happened by configuration problems. It doesn't happen as often as you think, but that's when it does happen. It's typically that. There's also, oh, sorry, yes?
Go ahead, sorry, yeah.
Well, so first thing, a lot of security issues in telecommunications network has nothing to do with maliciousness. It has to do with, I don't even know if I can call it carelessness. It's trying to coordinate all those various components, making sure they all work together. And 5G has tried to make it so telco networks can go into the cloud and take advantage of that scale. But once again, you're re-architecting all of these technologies. And the act of re-architecting, splitting them apart, making them cloud ready will introduce more insecurity. And again, it will not be malicious. It will be the result of doing a big recreation of what a telco network looks like and acts like. So a lot of the insecurity is happening because we're evolving rapidly. That's one. Second, telco companies are global companies. They're trying to make a profit, selling equipment customers buy around the world. We have got tech companies that have a bigger valuation than the GDP of large nations. They're entities unto themselves. I mean, I was at Microsoft as an executive for well over a decade. Microsoft sells in every country in the world, except for those on the US exclusion list. Mm-hmm. And every country had their own requirements, their own requests, their own regulations that had to be respected. And the goal is to do business in all those countries. And, you know, Ericsson, Nokia, Huawei, other companies you've never heard of that are actually very big in the telco industry, provided you're in the industry. They're all trying to sell globally. They're all subject to regulations in every country to do business with. They're also subject to regulations their home nation may set upon them that they have to accept. Mm-hmm. Remember, every country has a lawful intercept policy. Yeah. Every country can have law enforcement asked to monitor telecommunications their customers are doing. Mm-hmm. And we accept and live with that. But this whole point about zero trust is, what can I do when you, and another thing, if you're traveling globally, you're going to run into equipment from all of those companies at some point in your journey. So the idea is that you can decide, oh, I'm just not going to operate, have anything to do with them. Not going to be so easy when you're a large multinational company and your employees are spread around the world. Not so easy when you're trying to maintain diplomatic missions and consulates around the world. You are going to have crossing networks that you claim contains equipment that you don't trust.
Yeah. So in that perspective, let's say the major 5G providers in the world now, Huawei and Ericsson, Nokia, and others, normal people do not hear. As you know, you mentioned there are many providing components, different services.
I'll give you some names. You ever heard of IP Infusion? Have you ever heard of Adaptive Mobile?
No. So these are big players, right? But can
they are big players.
Yeah. So is it possible, from a technological perspective, I don't know if I put it in the right way, but let's say all these big players, companies 5G equipment providers, the towers now omnipresence. When you say within a short distance, one way I understand is 5G requires a lot short distance towers to be put in place for the kind of communication signal pickup. Can we say the hardware providers, 5G providers, and all that, be it any company, without looking at nationality, and then they do these on the one hand, but the responsibilities of zero trust or cybersecurity or the fence or the blockage from people who put in the box lied in the responsibility of the countries who use them or the companies who use these networks, or you can say we will identify one supplier that we have no trust issue, or the zero trust in nature is not to trust, as you say, the word means, and then you put just like old days of spying craft, you always have to be aware people do country between countries is an old craft. Espionage, you will have to put the fence in place. Does that make sense? That kind of analogy here. It is the defenders say Canada need to put the fence in, no matter what equipment we use or we do not use.
Well, remember, you can have equipment from trusted. Look, countries can make their own decisions within their borders. They're free to make any decision they want and apply any law they want that they believe is important for their society to function and for their people to live well. You can buy equipment that you're quite happy to buy from a supplier within your country, from a supplier within a country that you trust, and that equipment can still get hacked. By outsiders. So even though you've got a supplier you trust, you're in a country you trust, you're doing business across borders you trust, you can still be breached. And so regardless. So yes, you will have cases where countries will feel uneasy using equipment from another country, but even using equipment you're comfortable with cybersecurity, we know you can still be breached. There are still things that you're not going to be able to legislate away.
I mean, then we have probably 5 minutes left. I really want to get a sense from you. I know you personally advise government agencies. You work in this security area.
I'll talk to them. Remember, no one has to listen to anything I'm saying.
Yeah. So the thing is, from what you can say, without breaking any confidentiality, what would you be advised to the government across not the United States, but Canada and other European countries, other governments, saying what would be the right way to regulate when it comes to companies such as Huawei, 5G equipment use? We know that President Biden recently finalized and intensified in a way for banning ZLG and Huawei equipments in the US telecommunication networks. Canada is going through the same. What's your advice as a technical expert to these governments who are doing policy regulations? What is your message to them regarding cybersecurity, the best way to, we're now not talking about internal regulation, we're talking about regulations regarding nation states versus nation states. There are many other factors certainly involved, but technically, what is your take on this?
That's way above my pay grade, but I'm going to make an attempt at this.
Okay.
The whole point of zero trust, the whole point of President Biden's May 2021 executive order was to adopt a cybersecurity stance where you're doing the best effort you can to protect your systems from attack. Remember, the zero trust declaration within the executive order was in a result of ransomware hacks against a pipeline, an oil pipeline, gas pipeline company, and against a meat packing plant. No telecommunications equipment from a country on an exclusion list was involved in that. Zero trust is for the general case, where, remember, zero trust is don't trust anybody. And either you're going to have a secure connection or you're going to deny that connection to be made. Either you're going to say, I think we're fine, or you're going to say, I just denied this because I can't validate that this is secure. Zscaler as a company exists because of that approach. And we've been very successful. We are protecting many big names around the world. And not only that, but the way we've been doing cybersecurity in the walled garden, we find, like, this is public knowledge. Siemens, a large supplier of industrial automation, a gold standard around the world, adopted Zscaler and had a 70% reduction in total cost of ownership of their cybersecurity solutions. General Electric, I believe, this is again public knowledge, saw an 80% increase in employee satisfaction with their IT systems. Things like, what you don't get is adopting zero trust also does things like makes it easier to communicate, makes things faster for them. Some of the other techniques cause quite a slowdown in ability to move information around your company and with your partners and customers. So,
go ahead. Sorry.
I'm just saying, so there's someone regulating. I know we're running out of time. It's a long discussion. But it's a hard problem because you have countries that are your best nations you're trading with who will have statements on what they believe security means. And you're going to want to strike that balance. And you're going to go through times where you will, out of necessity, not be able to use technologies from suppliers for whatever reason. But things change. We're a global economy. We have, since the 90s, we have become so intertwined. Disconnecting overnight is really a hard prospect. I mean, even COVID, which was not about international tensions, we have logistics supply chain hiccups. We can't get chips to put in our cars. I've just had Ford announce they're going to be making their own chips where they used to buy them from suppliers. There's so many more things involved in this regulation. It will work itself out over time, but nations are nations. They will have differences. They'll have spats. Important thing is keep talking. Talk to your citizens, talk to your partners, talk to the countries you're not happy with. Keep talking. It's when you stop talking, we all have our problems.
Yeah. So while politicians, policymakers, regulators do the talking, which they are doing, such as Biden and Xi has the summit. But from what you say, companies you mentioned, and your companies such as Zscaler, are you actually, do I walk away from this conversation that I detect the kind of confidence you have saying, give me any equipment, I can make it secure because it's my zero trust responsibility. Are you saying companies like Zscaler, you can take any, say, of Ericsson or Huawei equipment into your hands, and you can use them from a technical perspective and secure, it's actually safe?
It's about securing yourself against all comers.
Okay.
It's secure. Remember, as I said, you can have equipment from a well-known supplier that you trust, that your government trusts. It can still get hacked. And the whole point of zero trust is, how do you protect against everything? Protecting against one thing, regulating against one thing, that's great. Fine. And that's the purview of the government to do that. But there's much bigger issues involved here that, the reason we're in business is to try to protect against the greater series of threats against companies.
Okay, Ken, I think the hour, we are a bit over, if I look at the clock correctly. Do you have any, you want to say a few words to wrap things up? This has been a great conversation. I'm actually going back to watch what we've been talking about so we can learn more from the slides that you put up. I'm pretty sure our viewers will benefit from this. So any final thoughts? Go ahead.
5G is going to make a lot of changes rapidly to how we think and do things. And you're going to wonder how you've ever lived without it in a few years. At the same time, huge amounts of data about you, about your friends, about your businesses, about your governments are going to be out there. And what we choose to do with them and how we choose to apply them, we're not really sure yet what that's going to mean and how that's going to affect everyone. Legislation always trails. Getting out in front of it is always a challenge, always a fine series of trade-offs. And it's going to be a while, but the disruption is here. And 5G, as I told you, is going to rock your world, and you're going to love it, and you're going to wonder how you're going to live without it. And then you're going to wonder, well, okay, what's the downside here? We're going to find that out over time. And that's where legislation comes in. I wish government agencies doing the regulation best of luck, because this is going to be a wild ride. All I can say is we're here with Zero Trust. We're here to help. We're always happy to talk. You know where to find me.
Yeah. All right. Well, on behalf of Institute for Peace and Diplomacy, on behalf of our viewers, our ongoing project on different policy issues, China Strategy Project, I want to thank you, Dr. Urquhart, Vice President of the 5G from Zscaler. Very interesting discussion. I look forward to more conversation with you. Again, really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Ken.
Thank you. You're most welcome.